I actually just wrote a song recently about, um, a fight with your partner during quarantine because everyone's inside, and especially in New York in these small apartments, your neighbors can hear everything.
This podcast is all about you and your journey in music and how you got to where you are now.
Cool. Um, yeah, I'm a huge newcomer. I've been recording for the past few years, like professionally in the studio. But yeah, I just put out my first song like a couple months ago now. So it's all very new and exciting.
Very cool. Well, yeah, I'd love to hear your story. So, first of all, where were you born and raised?
I grew up in Pittsburgh, PA. That's actually where I am right now. I'm home for the weekend for a wedding.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, so some nice suburbia time.
Sure.
Yeah.
Where do you
Um,
usually live? Are you in LA?
no, I'm in Brooklyn.
Oh, Brooklyn. Okay, cool.
Yeah, so I've lived in New York for 10 years now. Actually, maybe over 10 years. I went to school at FIT and I've just been here ever since, haven't left.
Very cool. How did you get into music?
So I have been writing songs and singing since I was very little, just always writing. I grew up
Okay.
doing some musical theater as well, so I've always loved performing, and I was always the obnoxious kid, like putting on shows for my family at any function, you
Oh,
know.
sure.
Um, and so yeah, I studied fine art in high school. Oh, that's my dog here
Hi,
just joining
doggy.
us.
My dog's
um,
out the other side of the door, so
I'm
it's
actually on
totally
her,
cool.
yeah, I'm on her couch right now, so it's
Oh,
really, I'm
uh-oh.
invading. Um, yeah, but anyways, I grew up doing musical theater and I studied fine art in high school. So when I moved to New York to go to FIT, I was studying textile design.
Okay.
Um, and so I kind of stopped singing in general for a few years. I was still writing songs constantly, and I just had like a list of voice memos on my phone of either partial songs or full songs, just a cappella that just didn't have anywhere to go. Um, and then I kind of felt like a part of me was missing, and I realized that's like really, really what I want to do.
Uh-huh.
And I kind of fell back into music in a sort of like organic way. Basically, um, I was going to LA for work like 3 or 4 times a year for my design job. Oh, I work
Okay.
as a print designer, by the way.
Okay, cool.
So I've been in fashion for the past like 5 or 6 years now. Um, anyways, I was going to LA for my design job, and a friend's boyfriend is a songwriter out there, and he knew that I sang just from like word of mouth. Like I hadn't really done anything. He just knew from my friend that I sang. And he wrote a song, or he had started a song to pitch to another artist, but he really wanted like a girl singing on it. And so he was like, "Hey, you should just like come into the studio." I was actually staying with him and his girlfriend. He was like, "You should just come into the studio and just record this and we'll see what happens. Like it'll be fun." And
Oh, like you were
so
gonna be like the demo vocal?
yeah, exactly. And that was really exciting to me because again, I hadn't recorded like professionally at all.
So this is your
Um,
first time going into a studio?
yeah, I mean,
Wow.
I'd like in college, I did like a couple little covers with a friend, and they had access to their like college studio, but never like professionally, you know.
Uh-huh.
Um, so yeah, I went in and we finished the song and recorded it, and it was actually with Sean Lopez was the producer, and he ended up being my executive producer for like the rest of the project.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
yeah. So, anyways, I recorded the demo. The artist didn't end up taking it, but apparently it got like a really big reaction at all the labels that they showed it to.
Mhm.
So my producer's manager, who is now my manager, basically convinced me to come back out and just record a few more songs. And like I said, I had just years of like songs on my phone that I had never done anything with.
Yeah.
So the next time I went to LA for work, I would just be in the studio at night or on the weekends. And I think in the next trip we recorded like 4 more songs. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, what is this? Like this is kind of something in and of itself.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, from there it was just such a passion project for my producer and I. because I was working in design, I was like, oh, I'm gonna take control of all the creative. So I kind of like took on a creative direction role in collaboration with him.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so I've been doing all the single artwork, and we did all the videos in like a really DIY way. This was before I signed. So it was all just like super DIY passion project. Um and yeah, and now we just have like a big archive of songs because every time I would go out for work, I would just be in the studio writing more and just kind of built from there.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah,
I want to back up a little bit here.
sure.
So no, I love it. That's incredible. When you were writing songs and stuff, like when you were younger, you were in like high school and prior to that.
Like since I was like probably 6 years old, I've been
Oh,
just
wow.
like
Okay.
not full songs obviously, but
Sure.
I, you know,
Do you
always been
play,
writing.
do you play an instrument or just sing?
Just sing. I mean, I can like get by on guitar, but by no means do I say I like play guitar. I
Okay.
don't really write to instruments, you know. I sort of just hear the chords that I want in my head, and then I have to like describe how I'm hearing it
Oh,
in
sure.
like a
Okay.
really non-technical way. But I don't know, for some reason I just write like lyrics and melody at the same time usually. So
Uh-huh.
either to a click or not, I just, even on the train home from work or wherever, just like have an idea and get it down in my phone and then
Awesome.
go from there.
Did you
Yeah.
ever perform like out? I mean, you said you're in musical theater, but aside from that, had you ever gone out and performed like any of your own songs prior to doing this project in
Nope.
LA?
No.
Wow.
Yeah, it's all new. I mean, in high school I had like a band where we did some covers at like local events or talent shows, but it was by no means like a big performance.
But still, that's
Um
cool. Like you did talent shows and stuff. Do you remember doing, was that exciting or?
yeah, I mean, I've always loved performing. Like I'm excited to do that. I'm obviously nervous because I feel like I'm quite a rookie, but I do think that part comes somewhat naturally. I feel like
Sure.
I'm good under pressure.
Okay.
And so when it's go time, I'm like, all right, let's do this. Like I definitely get a
Yeah.
thrill out of it.
Yeah. Have you
Yeah.
performed any of your own songs to people before other than like recording them in the studio?
Other than friends and like, no.
Wow.
Excuse me, ma'am. Sorry.
All good. All
She has to
good.
sit right behind me.
I love that. That's amazing. Wow. Okay. So this is all going to be really new once like stuff opens up. I'm sure you're going to want to perform your songs.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, yeah, and so when I ended up getting signed, I was living in Paris for a bit for my design job. I was working
Wow.
remotely there. Yeah, that was amazing. And it happened really quickly. Um, Basically, my A&R guy at 300, my label,
Uh-huh.
um, ended up seeing the music video because my producer just sent it to him. Like it wasn't out anywhere at the time. Nothing was released, nothing was on YouTube or anything. And he would happen to hit up my producer and was like, "Are you working with any unsigned artists? Like, I'm just curious." And he's like, "Well, I have been working with this one girl, and like, here's this video we made." And he just freaked out and loved it. And he flew out to Paris that Saturday and flew my
Wow.
manager out from LA. And we just had a weekend there and discussed the project more. Um, and yeah, from when I got back to New York, I ended up signing with them. So that was
That's
crazy.
incredible. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's crazy that we were able to do this without having anything released. I know that's like a pretty rare thing these days, and it
Yeah.
wasn't like I had this huge social media following or was already an act at all. So I've
Well,
been
that's
really
cool. That,
lucky.
I mean, 300 sound. I've interviewed a number of artists on
Yeah.
300. They're an
Oh yeah.
incredible company.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's cool to hear that they develop talent like that.
They do, and they've just like, I think from the beginning I really pitched my project like I want to combine both of my worlds, so the design aspect and the music I really want to make into one.
Uh-huh.
Um Doing single artwork and eventually having a merch line, which turns into a label, and having my stage set up just like decked out in these prints I designed with, like wallpaper and upholstered furniture. Anyways, I think they were just really excited, and I was really lucky that they trusted the vision and kind of just let me and Sean do exactly what we wanted to. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's been great.
That's so cool. Yeah, I mean, I've talked to like Bailey Bryan, who's on the label. Like, she was like a
Uh-huh.
country artist, and she
Yeah.
wanted to go, in the pop realm, and she had this huge song on TikTok, and it was like they were like totally embraced it. And we're like, yeah, go ahead and do,
Yeah,
do what you're gonna do. Like, we love it. Like, I just think that's so rad that they're still in the business of finding and developing new talent, because it's like so rare these days. Now it's like if
it
you don't
is
have a million followers or a song that's just like
already blowing
killing
up.
it on
It's
like
hard.
Spotify or TikTok or something. Like, they're
And
not
I've
like, labels aren't in the business of like really developing artists anymore. I feel
right.
like they're going to go to the people that are already successful or having some sort of success.
I know that's the tricky thing these days too, is there's definitely a ton of pressure to like go viral on TikTok because that's where like most young people consume new music.
I know, it's
So
crazy.
I understand that is the reality of the music industry, but it is a bit sad when you are not necessarily used to this like constant exposure and self-marketing. So
Mhm.
I think that's something that I have to catch up with a bit. But it's always nice to do interviews like this and like focus on the
Sure.
actual project and not just have like, here's my skincare routine and here's a day in the life in New York, like
Right, right, exactly. I
you
mean,
have
there's
to be
something to be
like,
said that they're um signing like real artists, like not
yeah,
not these big booming like influencer type people.
yeah, it's a lot of pressure. And I feel like as an artist these days, you really have to be like your own marketing department and your own like content creator. And there's just so much that goes into it now to build an audience.
Yeah, it's like you have to wear a bunch of hats. It's not like now
Exactly.
I'm just the artist. Now it's like I have to be the artist and the producer and the
And
music
yeah,
director, or the music video person and the social media person. And
yeah, it's so much. And I'm actually I'm still working my print job part-time,
Mhm.
which is good because it keeps the creative hand kind of like going.
Mhm.
Um, but it's definitely hard. Like content is it's like a full-time job, like it's not easy to just do here and there on the weekends or something.
Right. That wouldn't like, you have to really go for it if you really want to
Yeah.
do
And
it.
also, I don't know if it's because I'm like millennial and like a bit after the TikTok thing happened,
Yeah.
but
That's where I'm
it like
at.
yeah,
I'm like too
so
old
I'm
for it.
me too. I mean, I love TikTok, like I scroll on TikTok all the time and my feed is like absolute fire. Like it is so specific to me.
Okay.
So I love that, but when it comes to actually creating one, I just feel like such an idiot. Like I'm like, why is this taking me 2 hours, you
Sure.
know? So I got to
Yeah.
catch up.
I know. Then there's these kids that just come up with something like so on the spot, and it just goes nuts
And
on
it's
there. It's crazy.
clever. And then
Right.
yeah, then there's videos that are like took you no effort to do this, but it's like you tapped into something. And I don't know
Right.
what it
Right.
is.
Exactly.
But
so
yeah.
so you get to LA, and in this demo session that you did, um, is that kind of how you got? I believe you said that that's kind of how you got in the studio with somebody that was able to be like, yeah, let's start writing your own songs or putting
Yeah.
together your own songs.
Yeah, exactly. That's where I met Sean Lopez, who I've worked with ever since.
Okay. And
Um,
do you remember showing him like your first song, like original stuff? And was that like,
yeah,
scary?
it was scary. The first time I went in actually, I was learning the song and Nick was like, "Okay, let's play it." Nick Long, who goes by Dark Waves, he was the one who wrote it. Um, and I remember the first time we were like playing it in his studio, I was um so nervous. My voice was like shaking and I just hadn't sang in front of someone in years.
Mm-hmm.
So that was super nerve-wracking. But then when I showed him my original stuff, like the voice memos I had, he was just like so encouraging and was like, "I can't believe you wrote this like a cappella. You have like a bridge and chorus and everything." And I just like showed him my songs and he was like, this is gonna be awesome. Like this, you're good at what you do and you should keep doing it." So it was definitely good to have that reassurance and like
And
validation that
validation. Yeah,
yeah, like
exactly.
I can do this. I am good at this.
That's cool.
Um yeah, and now now I'm not nervous to sing in front of anyone. So that's great.
That is cool. And you've released two songs or just one song?
Too.
Okay. And the first one you
Um
put out tell me about Lightning Love is the brand new one, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when did you put out your first song?
That was April 22nd, I believe. It was
Oh,
like end
so
of April.
still new.
Yeah, it's all very new.
Tell me about that. What was it like to put your first song up, and was it,
It
tell me
was
about that moment.
overwhelming and
Yeah.
exciting. My friends and family have just been rooting for me for so long because they've known like this entire time that I've just like wanted this so badly. And they have all listened to like every single demo I've ever written. Like they've been listening on Dropbox for years, basically, like just Dropbox links. So they were all really excited that they could just go to Spotify now. My mom was like, I just told Alexa to play your song on Amazon Music and she did it. Like,
That's rad.
yeah. And yeah, I've just been so lucky to have so much support and people from Pittsburgh who I hadn't talked to in years, just like really promoting it and showing their friends. And just, I don't know, there was like genuine excitement from people that I didn't even expect. And that was also super validating and
Mhm.
yeah, lovely. It was
That's
really great.
incredible. Yeah. And
Yeah.
the first song you put out is it Mulholland Drive?
Yeah. That's Mulholland Drive.
Okay.
It
And
also
where's
got
that?
like,
Is that a town or a street in Pittsburgh or
no,
where?
that's in LA.
Oh, it's in LA. Okay.
Yeah. And the song is like basically about wanting to opt out of these like surface level social events and just like get lost with someone instead,
Okay.
which is true to me. I'm like good at being an extrovert when I have to, but I'm genuinely a pretty introverted person.
Uh-huh.
And I
That's
think
how
I
I
would,
am.
yeah, I think I would much prefer just like going down a windy road at night with like one person than a huge event where I'm talking to a lot of people.
Sure.
However, this was also pre-quarantine, so maybe afterwards I could use like a few big events and then I'm good again. I can just
Okay.
be alone
So
for a
so
while.
where were you when quarantine hit? Were you guys working on the record?
I was in Brooklyn. We
Oh
had
my.
actually, yeah, we had actually just filmed 2 more music videos in LA, and then literally the week I got back was the week quarantine happened. And
Oh my
so,
gosh.
yeah, so I was just in an apartment with roommates on lockdown. Um,
What
I
was
was,
that like? I mean, I can't imagine being with roommates and
oh my God, yeah. It was like,
like that just sounds so stressful.
it was just like a huge blur. Like I don't even remember it. Like somehow a lot of time passed, but I don't really remember what happened.
Okay.
Um, and I was furloughed from my print job for like 4 months, so I was just like in the apartment. Like I would try to like sleep in as long as I can just so that I had less hours awake to do nothing. Like
Oh my.
I'm like, if I sleep until 1, I can stay up until 9 doing this puzzle, and then I can go to
Right.
sleep at 9:30 again. Like that's a reasonable time to go to sleep again.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Just like, yeah, I mean, I have a family and 2 kids, so I was pretty occupied during the whole quarantine and still, but
Yeah.
I mean, I can't imagine. I was thinking about that for people that are, out of college or in their early 20s and maybe have some roommates or don't or live alone. Like I would just lose it. Like I couldn't
I
imagine.
was fully losing it. But
Oh
again, it's
my
like
gosh.
I don't understand how so much time passed because I feel like nothing happened. It's just
Sure.
bizarre.
Were you able to
Um,
write it all, or were you inspired or not inspired? I've talked to
I
people
was
and had
actually so uninspired
I've
that
heard that.
I didn't I didn't write a song for like probably like 8 months. Like I hadn't even started anything and I felt so guilty about it because I was like, "Oh my God, I finally have all this time. I should be doing something." But it's like I don't know, you're just so unstimulated that's like, what do I even fucking write about? And
Right.
I actually just wrote a song recently about um a fight with your partner during quarantine because everyone's inside and especially in New York in these small apartments, your neighbors can hear everything. So I just wrote a song called The Show, which is literally about a quarantine fight where you're like putting on a show for your neighbors basically.
I
But
love
it like
that.
it took until after COVID, like months and months after quarantine for me to get that out, you know, like I just had I didn't have a creative bone in me during
Right.
which sucked because I had so much time to be creative, but just
Yeah, it's like you can't force it, and you feel like, okay, I should be, like you said, working, so to speak, right now, but because there's nothing
exactly.
going on. But if there's nothing inspiring you, what are you gonna? Yeah, you can't just pull it out of
Yeah,
thin air. That's interesting to think
exactly.
about that. Like, I love the concept of the song, because how entertaining would that be to just have some neighbors that are just obnoxious or like always fighting? You're just like, well, this is gonna entertain me for
Well, the thing
the
is everyone's
quarantine.
fighting. Everyone's fucking fighting because everyone's on top of each other. Like my boyfriend
Sure.
and I, we live together and we're living together during quarantine as well with another roommate, which was like just so much.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
but it's like you're fighting and then you hear other people fighting and everyone just wants to kill each other. And because there's like nothing else to do, you're like listening in, like, oh, this sounds dramatic. Like I can feed off of this for a little bit, you know?
Right. Yeah. You're just like, oh, what's going on over there? Like, what are they
Yeah,
fighting about?
you're like, keep going. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
more. I need it. I need something.
Sure. Well, at least you got something out of it. You got the song. That's incredible. And is the
Yeah, and
song
I really
recorded, or
like
you
it.
just wrote the lyrics and the melody so
It's
far?
it's recorded. It's just on an acoustic guitar right now. And I don't know if I want to keep it acoustic or build the track, but I'm honestly like really proud of it and it's super catchy. And I think it's like a humorous take on these big dramatic fights, which are just purely dramatic, you
Sure.
know? So it's like the concept of that just being like a show, like nothing
Yeah,
more.
yeah. You're like, this is the show. I'm gonna sit and watch this wall, but listen to the trouble happening behind it.
Yeah, exactly. In the bridge, it's like, lover, do you want to make a scene? Others can listen from the mezzanine, meaning
Oh,
like
I
the
love
neighbors
it.
listening from
Yeah,
above.
I love that. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, so does you have a whole project and you have a whole EP, or do you have a record done?
Yeah.
Like, tell me what you plan on putting out.
So the EP is done.
Okay.
Um, I, I, I'm not totally sure if I'm going to have another single next and then the EP or the EP next.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, the EP is done.
Hmm.
And beyond that, we have just a really like a pretty significant archive of songs and there's at least 10 that I'm like set on for the album.
Oh, rad.
So
Okay.
and then even beyond that, I'm like, here's what could be on the second album. And of course it's gonna depend what goes together.
Right.
Um, I'm definitely like a big perfectionist. So I'm gonna want to make sure it's cohesive,
Hmm.
which could be tricky because I think my music and my writing style is really varied. It's not it's like indie pop, but it's like there's a lot of different influences in there. So I gotta make
Hmm.
sure it all works together. Um, but yeah, we have so many songs. So
I
lots of
love it.
content to come. Yeah.
That's cool. And the latest single you put out was "Lightning Love." That just came out, right?
Yeah. And that's honestly like one of my favorite songs I've ever written.
Is that an older one,
Um,
or because like you talked about having voice memos and stuff that you'd write and like sing into your
yeah,
phone? Like, how many of these songs, or how much of these lyrics are from like years ago, or is it all pretty relevant and new?
Lightning Love was about a relationship I was in at the time. So that wasn't from like years and years ago. The first songs that we recorded as demos were from like 5 years ago, maybe.
Oh, okay.
Um, and I don't know if I'm necessarily releasing those, but that was sort of like what jump started it.
Yeah, just kind of
Um,
get the ball rolling, so to speak.
yeah, exactly. And find my like style and
Uh-huh.
production and how I want to write. Um, so yeah, Lightning Love was about the relationship I was in at the time. And the kind of like structure and feel to it was inspired by this little known Elvis song called In My Way.
Okay.
And I actually just put out a cover of it, but it's this really short and sweet acoustic track that almost sounds like it was recorded through like a tape cassette or something. And it's like it sounds sweet, but the lyrics are not totally sweet, which is kind of how I feel about Lightning Love. It feels like this really nostalgic, dreamy love song, but if you listen to it, it's actually about like something a bit toxic. Um, it's like drowning when the seas are rough, but when it's calm, it's not enough. So, this love
Uh-huh.
that's like striking and
Right.
intense, but ultimately like unstable and fleeting.
Sure.
But yeah, I wanted it to have, we actually recorded it through an old cassette tape and then ran it through a toy like Rambo amp, like an amp with Rambo on it.
Oh,
Um,
wow. You
yeah,
have
pulling
video of
out all the
this?
stops. I do. My producer does have video of it.
Oh, that's cool. That's rad. Well, that's a cool piece of content.
Yeah, he's like such a weirdo. I mean, Sean and I work so well together because we're both like a bit goth and emo,
Uh-huh.
and he has so many random like toys and gadgets in his studio that he's just down to like do experiment with. And so am I, because, you know, I'm still finding, even now I'm still finding like my sound, and I think I do sit a bit left of pop, so I love when there's these surprising strange elements in a track.
Mhm.
Um so yeah, he was really down to experiment with that and just get so much like texture in there, and just feels
That's
really
cool.
raw.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I love that. That's really cool. And that's awesome that you have a video of this old Rambo amp. I think that's so funny.
we do. And he's just like holding the cassette tape up to the Rambo amp, like, what the hell is going on right now? But that's how we recorded the track.
That's rad. I love those little like, experimental things like you're saying. Like it's not just like, okay, I'm gonna run line into the thing and I'm gonna use a bunch of plugins and make it sound cool. Like if you like old, like Led Zeppelin recorded, drums in like some big hall and they put the mic at like the top of the ceiling,
Yeah.
like all those cool little tricks and those things always fascinate me with certain recordings. I think
Yeah,
it's
and it's like,
cool.
why not? You know, I wasn't we were just writing for ourselves, and we still are. So we were like, yeah, like what's the word? Like who cares if it's
Right.
weird? We can always
Right.
tone it
Right.
back if we have to. But
Exactly. At least you have it.
yeah, and I think there's a lot of pop music that's very clean, which is nice in and of itself, but I think it's refreshing to have something that is just really stripped back and
Mm.
vulnerable.
Some grit
Um
to it.
Very gritty. Um and Lightning Love is super different from my first song Mulholland. It's kind of like an A side B side sort of drop. Mulholland is like the more catchy banger, you want to blast it in a car while you're driving.
Uh-huh.
Um and Lightning Love is more like a, definitely comes from a more vulnerable place, and just like I said, super super raw,
I love it. And how does
kind of
that
lo-fi.
yeah, I was gonna say like more of a lo-fi sound when I listen
Yeah.
to it, that's what I hear too.
Mhm.
What about the rest of the record? Is it similar? Like, are you kind of all over the place like that? Like, I love that. I was just curious if
I
that's
think I think for the EP we are thinking of it as an A side B side thing. So it is like different ends of the spectrum. I think my next single sits sort of in between the two.
okay.
Um and then the rest of the EP, I don't want to give too much away, but I think
Sure.
it's like kind of a balance between the both. But as far as the releases go, we are thinking of like a side B side type
I love
deal,
it. Very
because it
cool. Well,
this way it covers all ends of the project before I
before you
put
put
out
it
an
out,
album. Yeah.
do you have a release date for the record, or are you still kind of figuring that out?
I don't think we have a solid date quite yet, but we will soon. I have a general idea of the time.
Love it. What about I did see on your Instagram you do a little bit of live stuff or go on and do some reels. Um,
Yeah,
is that fun or do you plan on doing that like something for the release of the record? But I mean, maybe stuff will be opened up by then. I mean, it's looking
I
like
hope
tours
so.
are happening. Do you plan on doing like a release show like maybe in LA or New York or something?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially for the EP. I would love to do that. I'm sure we will. Um, Probably in Brooklyn, because, you know, it's my home.
Your
It's where all my
roots?
friends are right now,
Yeah,
yeah.
totally.
But I would love to do, for like a release show, sort of a combo gallery type situation where it's like the designs and the cover artwork and the process of finding all of that, because I'm doing that myself as well. So I'd love
Hmm.
to have like a performance and sort of gallery type space
That's
to,
cool. Yeah,
because
because
again,
go
yeah,
ahead.
the whole point of the project is to like merge both of my worlds. So
Right. Yeah, because
get
you have
on
the
that.
fine art aspect to your life and your career and merging that with what you already have going on now as far as the music goes. That's
Yeah,
awesome. I
I
mean,
would
it's
love
really
to have like
not
panels of
a
wallpaper behind me and stuff, just like
yeah, like a really
super
dope
heavy.
set design.
Yeah, exactly.
I love
Yeah.
it. That's awesome. And are you still painting? Like I saw, or I mean, not painting. Are you still doing like print design work other than
Yep.
And you're
I
kind of,
am.
so how is that going with, are you, you talk about mixing it, like, are you coming up with all the art for your records and like kind of like the creative scheme behind everything?
Yeah, I'm still doing my design job 3 days a week, and so I work for a print studio that sells designs to like a bunch of different fashion brands. So I'm never designing for like one client.
Oh, okay.
Um, what's great about that is, like I said, it just keeps my hand moving and like keeps the skill level consistent.
Sure.
And then yeah, for my own project, I think this like I'm really drawn to a specific style right now, which is like a 70s retro sort of moment. Um, and I think it ties into my music because everything I write, I hope has a sense of nostalgia. A lot of my influences are like Mamas and the Papas or, like 90s trip hop scenes. So I think there's a sense of nostalgia in art and the music I do.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I love it. And thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate you
Thank
taking time,
you.
especially on your Saturday, to chat with me.
No, I'm so happy to. This is the stuff that really excites me. I feel like there's so much, like I said, there's a lot of pressure to have like a TikTok go viral, but it's so nice to do this and just talk about the music itself and the project.
I love it. Well, thank you again so much. I do have one more question for you. Do you have any
Yes.
advice for other aspiring artists, or any advice that you've picked up along your journey?
Um, I think just write down everything. And if you have an idea, record it immediately. Like, even if you're not sure what it's going to be, because now it's like I don't go into the studio with a song on my phone every time, but I go in with a stack of journals that's like a scattered thought here and a scattered thought there. And at some point they kind of come together.
Mhm.
So I guess as far as writing goes, just like write down everything and don't lose it, it'll come back to you.